Welcome to Headcanon Fodder, a collection of musings, theories, and random stuff about media. This video's about an unjustly forgotten movie from the year 2000, Virtual Nightmare. Made in the wake of the success of the late 90s is "The world's not real, man" cinema boom. That included films like The Matrix, Dark City, and The 13th Floor. It's much lower budget than any of those, but it might be the smartest of them. It's by far the most pertinent to today, and is one of the most strikingly deep critiques of pure capitalism and the crap that comes along with it that I've ever seen in a sci-fi movie. But before I begin, if you like the video, please give me a like, a sub, hit any bells in grabbing distance, and maybe think about supporting the channel via Patreon. I promise I'll always deliver videos as or less vital than this. Or just leave a comment. YouTube likes when you do, and I read them all. But anyway, back to Virtual Nightmare, and I'm sorry if you want to go watch this 25-year-old movie made by UPN, the asylum of its day, but I'm gonna spoil the hell out of it, because there's no way to fully explain all this without spoiling everything. And before I can start on the film, I first need to talk about the short story that it's technically based on, The Tunnel Under the World. If you've seen my Out of the Unknown videos, you might recognize this. It was Series 2, Episode 8. And like Virtual Nightmare, I'm gonna have to spoil that. So if you want to read it unspoiled, or watch the film unspoiled, stop the video now.
Time's up!
Tunnel Under the World was written by Frederik Pohl, and I believe it's the first example of the, I don't know if there's an actual name for this trope, but the false reality trope, where a normal everyday person is living their life in the normal world and discovers piece by piece that the world isn't real and they're being held in this false reality. The Matrix, Dark City, and The 13th Floor are all classic examples, but The Truman Show and Mind Warp are also pretty good. This is a trope that you'd think arrived with virtual reality, but no. Tunnel Under the World was published in 1958, and so long predates that. It's the story of a man who discovers that everyone in a small town's memories are being reset every night. They're all reliving the same day. The only differences are the advertisements and what the salesmen are hawking. And here come the spoilers. He discovers that the town was destroyed in a chemical plant explosion and has been recreated. The original people's minds downloaded into robotic bodies, and they're a captive audience for advertising techniques. The people running the town are seeing what works and what doesn't so they can improve their advertising. It's like a beta test for the adverts, but also, because they get their memory wiped every night, it's like they're their own control group. Of course, the aims go beyond advertising. They also intend to use what they learned to improve methods of all sorts of societal control. Mr. Swanson, the owner of the recreation, even plans on using the methods he's learned to run for high office. And what is the tunnel under the world? It's the corridors under the town, with large, janky design work vaguely reminiscent of Meccano, because the town's been rebuilt on a tabletop. After all, why go to the bother of making full-size robot replicas when tiny ones will do? The story ends with the hero captured and reset, returned to his life and once again forced into a very modern capitalist type of slavery. Pohl was a socialist, and he really hated both advertising and authoritarianism. Now, Tunnel Under the World's plot has been completely upended and shredded by Virtual Nightmare. If they didn't say it was based on it, you'd likely never realize the connection. Which makes sense, as it apparently was first inspired by Philip K. Dick's time at a joint, and Tunnel Under the World was later imported into it, and then it kind of took over. Anyway, Virtual Nightmare begins in an almost Stephen King-like town, all small-town 1950s, adjacent Americana, and vividly drawn but folksy characters.
Anything in the paper?
Same as usual. Trouble all over the world.
Why even read about those foreign places? Everything I could ever want is right here in Fairview.
The lead is Dale Hunter. In the wake of a head injury, he started to obsess over the phrase, "This is not a pipe."
There's this phrase I can't get out of my head. This is not a pipe.
Ceci n'est pas une pipe. This is not a pipe.
And has begun seeing things. His reality is breaking down. As his visions and sense grows, he does better at work and eventually even gets a promotion and a transfer to Honolulu. which is not what it appears.
It's a magical place.
You see, the town is a simulation, a self-correcting simulation, that has processes for dealing with people who begin to see the truth. It comes up with a reason to send them away to Honolulu, the real world, where people live in squalor. The rebels in the real world are fighting against an elite living in decadence who are in control of the simulation. It's all kinda Matrix-ish, but here comes the curveball. Hunter eventually realizes that this reality is also fake. The simulation is so self-correcting that it removes those it deems as dangers for rebellion and those who are so dickishly arrogant that they ruin the suburbs, and they move them to their own sub-simulation where they can play as rebels and decadent overlords and fight forever, unable and unwilling to bother the simulation. You see, whether it's the simulation's work or the people on some level knowing what's going on and being okay with that, the rebels and the elite never actually move against each other. Not really. They're kept in a perpetual stalemate. But like I said, Hunter once again works out the truth and finally exits the simulation, where he meets the man running it. The simulation is not a digital brainscape like the Matrix. It controls people's perceptions, what they see and hear, but their bodies are their own. They're wandering around playing rooms covered in fake furniture, and the simulation does the rest. Now, the man running the simulation only gives the basics of its origins, so some of this history is me extrapolating and reading between the lines. But basically, the simulation was created after capitalism had got so bad that it reduced most people to utter poverty.
If there wasn't a war, then how did things get like this?
Simple economics, sir. Had to happen.
Capitalism created the problem and then cheaply sold a solution. The illusion of the sort of nice life that people used to be able to afford. This also had the added benefit that it stopped most people from even thinking about trying to improve their lot. The second simulation where the rebels and the elite live was created when some rebelled. And then the rich of the real world realized that the world the simulation could create was better than the one they had in real life. Plus, they probably missed having people to lord over and torment. So they entered it too. And so, the system with its two subsystems was created. It went on long enough that people in the simulation forgot they were in it, and it's been running for about 100 years. The man running the simulation is the only employee left, at least in this region. The system, capitalism, having moved beyond a need for customers or even money, just pure control and perfect equilibrium. Almost. Throughout the film, each simulation has been discussing something coming, something big, something called Aurora, and it's in its final stage in perfecting the system by removing its moving parts. The subjects are going to be drugged and held in catatonia, with the simulation existing only in their heads. Hunter, though, isn't interested in that and instead shuts it down, probably just locally, but we don't know for sure. Only to discover that everyone's been linked to it for too long. They don't need the simulation to see the fake world that it created. Now that's just the basics. I've not spoiled everything, so I encourage you to watch the film for yourself and see what I've not talked about. It's an excellent piece of sadly forgotten sci-fi. But on to the discussion. Most anti-capitalist media will simplify things like, there's an evil company that does evil and it really should be stopped, probably. Weyland-Yutani from Alien is a classic example. But Virtual Nightmare, I think, is kind of unique in that it's not just a bad company. It actually depicts the almost Lovecraftian way that capitalism sustains itself. You see, the one advantage that capitalism has over every other economic system yet created is that it has the ability to subvert everything and make it part of itself. Art becomes part of capitalism. Sport becomes part of capitalism. Politics becomes part of capitalism. And yes, even the things that seek to destroy capitalism become part of capitalism. When you see a shop sell overpriced t-shirts with Che Guevara's face on them, that's not just a funny little irony. You're observing capitalism's greatest strength in action. It assimilates even those who seek to destroy it. This is why the rebels are locked in their own little simulation, never changing anything. Because capitalism has subverted their desire to destroy it and incorporated it into itself. Just like in real life. Even this video, made by someone who really doesn't like capitalism, is part of it, thanks to the advert that you probably skipped at the start. Hell, even the very rich, who'd normally be somewhat in control of capitalism, have become part of capitalism. They've been subsumed. There's an old saying that the only things that can't be avoided are death and taxes. I would add capitalism to that list. It is inescapable. But as Ursula de Guin once said, the divine right of kings once seemed inescapable too. But back to Virtual Nightmare, you see the system is not set up by an oppressive outside force. There's no aliens or machines doing this. People did this to themselves because of capitalism and for capitalism. You see, the world had got so fucked because of capitalism that there was no hope for a better tomorrow. Virtual reality, or more accurately augmented reality, was invented, and suddenly there was an affordable way to live in a nice house, eat nice food, look good. You don't change reality, you change your perception of it. Capitalism made the world sick, and then it offered people the illusion of health for a fee. Then the system continued, generations of people born into it. And in an example of extreme downsizing, the real-world end of things is looked after by single man, working for no one, just the system itself, and not even being paid, because the system is so streamlined that even money's been removed. The film ends with the heroes shutting down the virtual field, revealing reality, but the people in the simulation can't recognize that. The system perpetuates even beyond its own end. They are so conditioned that they no longer need the conditioning. Capitalism endures, it's what it does. And in a fun little meta-irony, Virtual Nightmare, this anti-capitalist film, only exists because of capitalism. Not just because it's a TV movie that got made to make money, but because this came out in 2000. It was greenlit to cash in the Matrix. This film is a never-ending fractal of capitalism and anti-capitalism that's been subverted by capitalism. But this isn't the end of Virtual Nightmare's amazing pertinence. The fake reality that most people are trapped in is almost purpose-built to comment on right now. It's been constructed to remove everything that people don't want to see, and replace it with stuff that they do want to see. It's a curated reality. It's how social media works, but applied to real life. AI art fits with this too. The most common use for it is to let people create the world that they want to see. Whether that's a visualization of a character they created, or a video of Elvis and Planet of the Apes, or something they want to post on Twitter for clout. Fascists tend to use it a lot to create evidence of the people they hate being terrible, to create heroic images they aren't talented enough to create in more traditional ways. The film is depicting this curated reality idea, writ much larger to control actual, perceived reality. I don't say this lightly, but it's like Virtual Nightmare was made about today. And what is fascism? Fascism is capitalism in decay, turning to avert control, harkening back to a simpler, safer time for the majority. Virtual Nightmare depicts a world where capitalism has decayed so much that people gave it avert control, allowing them to retreat and live in a simpler, safer time, at least most of them. And what is the final decay? Aurora, keeping people imprisoned bodily as well as mentally in their perfect little cages. And it's no mistake that the happy community that Dale started out in is based in the suburbs of the 1950s. The closest thing to an American vision of fascism until long after this film was made. In fact, with such strict control, you could view the world of the system as a sort of benevolent-ish anarcho-fascism. Obviously, that is not a real thing, but this is fascism without rulers, a system of control that keeps most people happy, that's not enforced by anyone. Yeah, there's that engineer, the one employee, but he's not enforcing anything. He's just there to keep the machine running. Even the rebels versus elites lines up with this reading as fascism needs an other to function, and where it doesn't have a minority that's already hated, it will create one. Even if that minority is just random citizens. And the rebels and the elite are that minority, personalities they deem liable to cause trouble, separated from the whole, and aimed at each other to protect the system, kept in stalemate forever. They're analogies for two of fascism's big traditional enemies, left-wingers who seek to destroy the system, and traditional ruling elites who joined up with the system thinking they could control it, but end up as screwed as everyone else. This film gives you an entire feast of food for thought, and the fact that it was put out by UPN of all people is just hilarious. I strongly suggest checking it out. Last time I checked, there was a copy on YouTube. You might not reach the same conclusions as me, but you will reach conclusions. And if you do, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to know what you think. Oh, and if you do watch it, look out for cleverer than usual references to the film's themes. Obviously there's "This is not a pipe," but there's many more. My favourite reference is Hunter getting a prescription from Dr. Haber, the doctor in The Lathe of Heaven, the Ursula Le Guin book about a protagonist dealing with reality shifting around him, where the baseline reality is a blasted wasteland. Anyway, leaving that there, I hope you enjoyed. Buy me a Minion Blood at Ko-fi if you feel like it. And if you have a film you'd want me to spend way too much time thinking about, head over to Patreon, sign up and make a request.